This conference will now be recorded. This
So
conference will now be recorded.
in continuation to yesterday's discussion, I'll just touch base on a few points. So basically, we had discussed about the reason we gave an initial glimpse of what made SAP look out for a new product lines in their own space, and what was the need for what was the thing that was driving SAP to make it is basically the data front, right? As I mentioned, the data is becoming a core component of any thing that comes in. So that's the reason data is getting connected, data is becoming complex. There are the challenges with the data as to how the data gets stored, how the data gets processed. So SAP said, now let me move from the way I was depending on someone else's database to I'm moving to building my own database, so that any innovation that I could do for future can happen on my own database front, where I can streamline the database to my requirements. They can tune it to my requirements, where my because my product will be mounted on that particular database. So basically, the database as such was having all the powerful processors they wanted, because the processing of the data requires huge computational capabilities, which in terms that's the reason SAP came out with this concept of your in-memory database, which I discussed, because there are a lot of pain points that was there, basically because of the volume of the data and the new type of data that was all coming in, and it was the faster access for the data was required because everyone wanted real-time reporting, right? So basically in ECC that was not called as a real time, because the data was quite at least couple of hours or 2 hours or 3 hours old by the time it gets processed. I get the results out in terms of my reports, right? So when all these challenges were there, so whether IT had its own set of challenges and business has its own set of challenges. So how do I SAP was thinking, how do I uh,
Uh,
fix this?
Sorry,
Yeah,
Ram, sorry. About this fast access you said, right?
yeah.
In ECC, what
Yeah.
is the challenge we have in ECC? Uh,
So ECC, the problem was, see, ECC, when you have an ECC system, right? The data transactions gets created in ECC system, and finally the data gets moved to my BW system, right? The data gets moved, and after that BW system has to coordinate with my BW with the BIBO systems, and finally the reports are getting generated, right? So because you have one system that where the transactions are created, that has to move to a BW system. So when you do this, right, the real-time concept gets lost because the transactions are held in one system. The transactions, because transaction being it's all in the two-dimensional format, right, in the form of rows and columns, that gets put to a BW system, because the BW system will have to convert into a data cubical format, right? Because it's all a cubical data, because where the data gets, and after that the BW accelerators have to work in processing the data patterns are generated, then the BIBO tools does all the trend and all this analysis, and finally the reports are generated, right? The sufficient time that is involved in the data getting created to the data getting processed. So that is the reason they wanted one system, because EC system, though they are calling it as a real time, it is not it is not a real time, it is called as a near real time. Real time is something that is getting generated immediately. I'm able to see the effect of the data which is getting generated currently now. So this was the major challenge which ECC systems, not only ECC, any traditional system, right? Because when you have a system which is there for 20, 15, 20 years, the system has been designed for that era of technology, right? That era of the industry. Now you see, now because of this because of the change, the fast growing technologies and the data getting complex, so you need to have the system, you need to redesign the system or re-engineer the system as per the requirements of the current stage. So that is when SAP said, now I'm going to transform the way your SAP is being used, just from being only a transaction based system, or something where you get into transaction mode of working, creating a transaction, to something where I have a real time reporting now. So that's the whole fund of getting into this HANA as a structure. Okay. So that's what now you got an idea, right? Now you got why we wanted a faster
yeah,
access.
yeah, got it, got it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So there are challenges from business and IT, and that's when SAP built in their own system, right? When they built in their own system, they said, I'm putting my hard database onto my memory, right? When you put my database onto the memory, the reason being, previously memory prices were very expensive. Of late the memory prices started slimming down, right? So that's when I said, now when as a consumer people can afford it, as an enterprise definitely they can afford to put everything onto the memory, and they can store the data, because the processing capabilities putting onto the memory was much faster. So what they did is they work backwards. So in this case, what happened, they work backwards with all the chipset manufacturers, because it's all at the processing capabilities level, process level, right? So they work with the chipset manufacturers, and they ask them to design the chipsets based on the requirement where everything gets put onto the memory. Okay, so because there is nothing called as an in-memory database, yes, there was low-profile companies. As I said yesterday, there are some companies called P-Star-Time. So as I said yesterday, there are companies called P-Star-Time. That was basically a low-profile company which was running on the in-memory, but that was not on a full scale. So after SAP purchased that, and there was a company called Trex. It is basically a search engine concept where you have a faster capability. Even now, you heard of this Trex. Even now, it was pretty famous compared to pre-time and all. Trex was famous, and they had a BW accelerators. Again, that was helping your BW system in executing all the BW queries faster. Then they have something called as a live cache. You heard of this live cache? Live cache basically it's an APO based APO based processing capability of a system. See what happened is in APO, advanced planning and optimization system, because the data was all, you need to take a futuristic forecast data, you need to take a historical data, you need to take a financial data. All this data is all pulled from a BW system, which is in the form of a cubical data. So when you have so much of data, again, the processing capabilities in APO system is much faster because it has to be on a planning, because the planning is based on a lot of historical data as well as futuristic forecasting data. So when you have that, that's when the live cache was a concept that was there in SAP. So plus they had acquired MaxDB. So after all these things that they acquired, these three were acquired, and this was inherent of SAP previously itself. They used all these functionalities to come out with this HANA as a concept, HANA as a database. So as I said, HANA is high performance analytical appliance. It is basically appliance, as I said, it's a combination of my hardware plus software. Okay, so just to give a glimpse of what HANA is, basically it's an OLTP plus an OLAP into one system. That is your ERP, that is a business suite, plus your BW system. You can take it, these two as combined into one single system called HANA. You have embedded BW, everything integrated into the core of the HANA system. Okay, now then as I said, they are all, again, it's a relational database. It works columnar oriented, because I said now they are going to columnar based tables. It is not a row based storage and row based processing. It has now become a columnar oriented storage and processing. Okay, then coming to the path, I was explaining the path yesterday which SAP took in taking it forward to SAP S/4HANA, right from R1, R2 and R3, and they came out to, in 2004 they came out with the a service-oriented architecture. They came out to the NetWeaver concept, where they brought in more modules apart from the core modules being your sales, procurement, and manufacturing, to your CRM, SRM, all this additional, extensions of the sales procurement models have started emerging. Then after that, 2011, they came out with HANA, and 2012 they said, I'll put my BW on HANA. Yes, that's when people were able to realize the BW system put on HANA with all the inherent capabilities which HANA carries forward as part of its database structure. Okay, 2013 they came out with Suite on HANA. When you talk about a Suite on HANA, it is basically where you have an ECC system which is mounted on some traditional database. Now they are putting that ECC system on my HANA database. That's when you see a lot of migration projects. As I said, whenever you call it as a migration project, it is basically a Suite on HANA system. People have to migrate to HANA. Then the roadmap which SAP has set us, then go to your Simple Finance, get a Simple Finance implementer, and then go to SAP S/4HANA. Okay, that's where your entire structure was there. Okay, coming to the way your data was processed, right? You have a traditional way, you have a new way of data getting processed. In a traditional way, see, I have everything in my database. We need to understand this concept, how the data is getting processed, to how the data is getting processed now. So when you talk about the concept, here everything is in the database, and if you see here, everything is database, it gets copied to something called as an ODS structures, operational data store structures, and then there are a lot of ETL tools. ETL is basically an extraction, transformation, and load. Extraction is basically where you establish the contact with the system. Transaction is basically how you transform the data based on my requirement. Because I will have my own business perspective, right? I'll have my own parameters on which the data has to be processed, right? So based on which I'll inculcate what parameters on which the data has to be processed, because every reporting will have its own structure, the parameters on which the reports have to be generated. That's when the extraction, transformation, and the load, because you transform the data as per your requirements, then you load the data. So previously, a lot of tools were there, like for example, the famous tool is Informatica. If you have come across this technology, Informatica was basically used as a very great tool for your data mining. That's the reason of late now, previously the Informatica developers were paid huge. Whatever the package that we're asking that was being delivered, even now they have a prominence, because because of all this machine learning, all these things coming in, the data mining is becoming a very critical part, right? The quality of data that is being brought in, that depends on how good your reports are going to be translated to. And because how good your report is going to be translated to depends on what good decision making happens by your senior level management based on this report. Because everything is a chain, as a chain reaction to how everything the data gets processed, how the data gets stored. Because when after that ETL works, it gets into something called as a data warehouse. So when you talk about a data warehouse, it is basically a repository of data where you have all the data put in. It could be a sales, it could be procurement, all the data put in a one common repository. If you want to bifurcate the data further into sales, procurement, manufacturing, or for example your EWM, individually you want to put, they have something called as data marts. Data marts as a concept. Individually you can put line of business wise data. For example, sales, procurement, based on the from data warehouse, they can put individually data marts. Okay, once this is done, so then you have tables, right? Because all this data gets part of your tables. You have your index and aggregate tables. So when I talk about this index and aggregate tables, right from R1 to R2 to R3, we have passed across multiple versions of your SAP, and every version you see a lot of tables got multiplied, right? R1 had minimum number of tables. R2 the number of tables increased, and R3 predominantly, or the sizing wise, it increased so much that so much of data started getting stored in tables. So SAP said, so with so much of data getting stored in the tables, again there was one table referencing to the other. These are called as a references tables, right? It is basically indexing. Indexes basically you can see when you see the book at the backside, there is something called as the index where it references where everything is where everything is getting stored. That's the same. That's the same concept of index here. You have multiple tables where one table refers to another table. Especially in the R3 and this ECC systems, right? The indexes were so huge. Once the index tables were there, then on top of it there were aggregates. When you talk about aggregates, suppose I want to compute, right? For example, the sales orders computation, delivery orders computation, invoice computation, purchase order computation. Each thing there are a lot of computation, a lot of calculations has to be done. What these computational data used to get stored in a separate table, and there will be a query that will be passed through that particular table. The query will pick the data, and finally the query will be reaching out to the calculation engine, which will calculate and give the result back to the user. This was the entire process that was formed as part of your database structure. Now what is happening is your database is sitting onto the memory. When my database is sitting onto the memory, the processing capabilities of the system has increased by 1,000 times faster. So imagine when data getting processed now in a easy system to 1,000 times. If you find the data getting processed in a in a much faster way, obviously then everyone would look out for that particular product, because everyone is looking for a fast way by which they can work, right? Everyone lives is getting simpler, so that is the reason they're going for this new technology which has been coming into the market. So obviously that's where the entire focus is now on. Okay, basically because that helps in faster intelligence. So when you have a processing capability is much faster, it helps in faster business intelligence. When I say business intelligence, the way the data is extracted, the way the data sets are created, the way the data patterns are generated, the way you analyze your trends and regressions out of it, right? And finally you saying this is how the reports have to be, right? With that's a sequence of process that happens when it comes to a report making setup, right? So when you have all these things onto the memory, the first that SAP said is, now I'm going to reduce my indexes and aggregates. It's not going to be there in my system. I'm going to eliminate the index and aggregate, because so much of tables were dependent on this index and aggregates, based on which now I'm going and reducing this index and aggregate. Okay, yes. Once I reduce my index and aggregates, what will happen is then because everything will become onto the fly mode, because on the fly the index and aggregate tables, when I'm eliminating, as I said, they are not eliminating completely from the database structure. They are converting them from the table format to a view format, wherein they are maintaining few number of tables, and all the views whichever is used for any purpose, that views will be referencing to the table. So those views will be taking the data on a temporary format and then using for a reporting or any purpose or any program where this views get featured. Okay, and finally the query gets processed, and finally your results. So when you have all these things getting eliminated, index aggregates, it basically increases something called as a throughput of the system. That is, the performance of the system goes high. So SAP's major motto is to increase the performance of system. So they tried all means to reduce where they can reduce the load on the system, right? Obviously, your performance is directly linked to a load on the system. Imagine the same thing if you are having a laptop, right? When you find the performance of the laptop is low, you try to remove all the unnecessary, unwanted files from your laptop. That basically helps you in removing unwanted files, so your performance of system goes high. Imagine at the system level you do that. Imagine the same thing gets carried forward at the server level, right? It adds bigger impact in terms of the data getting processed in the system. Okay, so when you talk about this, when you talk about ingest about the HANA capabilities, yes, there are a lot of choice of deployment. As I said, you have an on-premise as well as the cloud choice of deployment, and they have a lot of capabilities in terms of SAP S/4HANA has its own set of text mining. So you have text analytics. So based on the text, how will the data gets processed? So when you talk about the text, right, a lot of data comes in form of the text. Directly, I cannot store the data, as I said, directly into my database. There has to be big data tools that will work in converting the text format into something where it can be stored on my database tables. Then once the data comes in, then I'll have to process the data and I'll have to work on the analytics and prediction. So I can predict what is going to be my future result. I can predict what is going to be my future stock requirements. I can predict what is going to be my future MRP requirements. I can predict what is going to be my future dependent demand. I can or an independent demand. So basically that's when it helps in further analysis of my particular data, and then I can simulate the data to see what is going to, because I cannot run it on a real time, and I'll have to simulate it and find it out, so that what is the thing, and based on which my entire decision support will have. That's why they said this is basically it's a cycle, how the data comes in, how the data gets processed in the system. Okay, then coming to a lot of work patterns that are put up. When you talk about the work patterns, the way they have streamlined the data, the way they make sure that your analytics is working, and how you see the data in a graphical format, because the entire data is getting picturized in a graphical format, so it makes one person's visibility much interactive with the system. That's where your entire work patterns have been aligned to the particular setup. Okay, then coming to a footprint reduction, they have something called as a data footprint reduction as part of this SAP S/4HANA structures. So when you talk about the footprint reduction, as I said, there are three basically formats on which the simplifications are carried out. One is basically where you have reduced the T codes. The other is basically where you reduce the transactions. Other where they have redefined the business process. When you have all the three concepts together, so basically your database sizes have started shrinking. Right from the time initially when the database was there, when your ECC systems, it was, if you see on the right hand side, it is 593 GB. Of late, it has gone to 118 GB on HANA as a database. On S4 HANA, they have brought it down to 42.4. Currently, till now, it is around 25 GB. And going forward, they are going to come out with something called as an event-driven model. By 2025, they're going to shrink the sizes of the database to almost 8 to 8.4 GB. So imagine the database sizes sitting in less than a 16 GB pen drive then, right? So that is why the database sizes have been reduced. Yes, the database sizes have been reduced, not compromising on the functionality. That we'll have to keep it in mind. Functionality wise, the performance is increasing, but that database sizes are declining or reducing. Basically because of the footprint reduction, or they have something called as a compression techniques in HANA as a structure. So compression techniques ensures the data gets compressed, but still the performance of the system will not be compromised on that part. Okay. And the other thing is basically my user experience. When I talk about user experience, you have something, 1 minute, let me show you. There is something called as a Fiori concept that is coming. When I talk about Fiori is basically the backend and the front end. You have two systems, one being the backend, you have a GUI concept, that is where you use all your backend system, where you use for configuration, and they have set up one more front end system now in this setup. When you talk about a front end system, okay, let me open it. So just I wanted to give a glimpse of it. So this is my backend system. I hope everyone is able to see my SAP screen. Okay. So Let me connect to the other system. Okay, this is your backend. So this will ideally look similar to what you are used in the ECC space, right? Predominantly, you will find all the system being similar. But if you get into node wise, right, because you get into node wise, that's when you'll find a lot of differences. So some things would be common. I'm not denying it because a lot of configurations have been carried forward from ECC. So things have become common now. So some of them have been common, but there are changes that has happened. Once you get into the system, once you respectively open the nodes here, that's when you'll come to know what changes have actually happened, because this is the backend part of it. Still, that GUI part of it is carried forward, and they have something called as a front end part of it. Sorry, this is the backend, and when you talk about a front end here, this is basically it opens on a browser where they have an URL, and you'll have to enter the username password for getting into that particular browser based setup. Let me check. This opens. Yeah. Okay, this is how the front end system would actually look. Okay, when you see here, these are all your individual tiles in the system. So when you talk about the styles, so you have individual tile. For example, your sales, you have individual tiles. You have procurement, you have sales orders, sales quotations, contracts. This is basically on the sales side, and there are a lot of analytics based tiles as well. You have purchasing analytics. I'm just taking an analytics tiles. So basically, one is a set of transaction tiles. You have analytics tiles. So for example, these are all analytics tiles. So it loads the data from your existing real-time data. When I talk about, that's what when I told about real-time data, this gives you results from the data that is existing now in the system, because that's when it influences a faster decision making in the system. Let it load. I'll show it to you. Yeah. Because analytical takes comparatively take a long time to load, because it has to draw the metrics from your existing system. Once it draws the metrics, yeah, I think it is getting loaded. So it is all fetching the data, so it takes some time. So let it load. I'll just show you once that entire setup is load. So this is
Ram,
how you, yeah. Tell me.
Ram, you have showed me this ECC system, no? The
No, this is
earlier
not
you
an
have.
ECC. No, it's not an ECC system. It is an S4HANA system.
Okay.
It is an
So
S4HANA system.
we will not work in this screen.
We'll work in this screen. We'll work in this screen as well as we'll work in. This is both are belong to S4HANA only.
Okay.
So this is basically, so you all your configurations will go in your backend system. This is your backend system,
Okay.
right? All the configuration will go in the backend system. All the transaction you can create it here, or you can create it here. Suppose you create a transaction here. So sorry, if you can create a transaction in the backend, you'll be able to see the transaction in the front end. Or you create a
Um,
transaction in the front end, you can just go and search the transaction number in the backend. You'll be able to find it.
okay. For example, when I want to create a sales order or contract or whatever it is, where I will create in this what here or in this in backend system.
Okay, so for example, let me show you it. So I'm creating a sales order here.
Okay.
So let me show you. I'll create it in the front end. Okay,
Okay.
this is a front end system.
Okay.
Okay, you have a front end system. So I create a sales order here. Okay, so I create a here sales order here. Okay, this all front end. What I'm showing it is a comprehensive front end system.
Okay.
I'm just creating a sales order. Okay, let me just getting a warning message. Okay, so you created a sales order. 127 is a sales order number, right? I go to my backend system here. This is both the 1709 systems. So I create an order now, right?
Yes.
Whatever I created in the front end, I'm able to pull it out of the backend. Similarly, whatever I created in the backend, it gets pulled. That is where you have two ABAP systems. One is attached to my backend, one is attached to my front end. You have a backend ABAP, front end ABAP. How that information gets translated from your front end to backend is through your NetWeaver gateway. That passes on the information whether it is created in the front end to the backend, or if there is any query that is passed in the front end. If you see here, basically, this is something that we'll have to understand. That is the reason many people have this confusion. So, okay, so for example, a lot of tiles are there. Suppose I click on this particular tile, right? This one particular tile gives me an information that has to fetch an information in regards to whatever issues are there with regards to the sales orders. Okay, all sales orders, wherever there are issues are there, this particular tile will have to fetch the information. Okay, this particular tile fetches the information in real time. This is where you have a real time information, right? So suppose I can go and drill it down. So based on the what are the issues based on the sales organization. They're based on the customer. Based on the sales orders you can drill it down to whatever parameter on which you want to pull the report on. When you talk about, because it changes, right? It is all based on the real-time data. How in the front end, how does the real-time data gets processed? This again, it goes to the back end, because nothing gets stored in the front end. Nothing gets stored in the Fiori side. Fiori will have to hit the database, and it has to process the data. It has to come to the backend ABAP, and from there the data gets translated to the front end ABAP, and finally you get the result, right? The front end ABAP in turn has all the BI/BO tools in which you process them, gets the data. So imagine the time taken for me to fetch the data in real time, right? So that is where you see the performance of system in real time. You get such a pace in which the data gets translated from a backend to front end, right? This is all happening through just because it is on a HANA database. Because it will not be much faster, because in real time, if such a sophisticated reports, because this is not an easy report, right? It has to go and translate the data. It has to fetch the data based on the requirements on which it has to be fetched. So you can have graphical data. You can have based on this thing, based on the sales order level, you can get an information. Individually, you can drill it down to whatever level you want to fetch the information. This is all part of your. So if you want to close an issue, if you want to work on an issue, then you can go to individual sales orders. You can resolve your sales orders. If you find there is some issue there and there, you can go and resolve the sales orders. That is where everything is getting translated to whatever is there in the backend. It goes and fetches the data from the backend, and based on which it pulls the data and translates the data as per the requirement that tile is aligned to. So this is basically some standard tiles. Tomorrow I have some custom tiles. Yeah. Tell me.
So the issue will be resolved both in background
Back end and
system
front.
also.
Yeah. Backend system also.
Yes. Okay.
Right. So for example, this particular customer, there is no accounting document that is created. Right. If you see the process flow here. Okay. So you have a sales order, delivery, invoice has been created, but there's no accounting document. There is some issue because some accounting invoice posting would be there, or some issue could be there. This is an old order, but I'm just taking as a reference. Some posting block would be there based on which it's not getting released accounts. That's where you go and check into individually where that issue is, and then go on. Suppose if there is a shipping issue here, shipping issue normally comes in because the stock is not there, right? Okay. So shipping issue, those set of old set of orders. So basically, because I can go and click on because there's no stock. The stock would have not been there. So because there is no warehouse transfer issue is there, so I can go and create. I can if there once you have the resident stock, you click on post code issue. Immediately the backend there will be an availability check. Again there will be triggered, and based on the stock confirmation, immediately a post codes issue. Okay. Because there's some posting blocks that have been put up. A lot of people work on these systems, right? So a lot of issues would be there. No accounting document, it's an invoice issue. These are old orders. So invoicing issue. I create an invoice here. I try creating an invoice because it's all a click of a button. So there's some controlling area issue here. So you can come to know what the issue is there and there. If where corrective actions can be taken. So if there's a controlling area because of which this thing is not getting generated. So in turn, that we can respectively alert the team wherever you have the issue that gets to be resolved. Because you have similar things that is there. Similarly, you create an invoice here. Again, some issue would be there. It's all profitability, account profitability analysis. Because of this, some issues are existing. So how do I process all the issues? So that is where this processing. Suppose in any sales order here, I go to the sales order fulfillment tab. I'm just opening this up because this gives an extensive idea of how the entire sales order is called depicted in the scenario. So suppose I go to my sales order fulfillment, the starting of this particular app. So I go here, let me. Okay, go by order level. All details are all populated here. So these are all here basically where you can have the information and you can directly go and check the particular information. And there are one more set of apps. For example, here I'm just putting it sales overview. Sales overview as an app, it gives a 360-degree view of a customer. So my sales overview is one particular app here.
So we will not use any transaction anything. We just like what you call
Click like how you use your mobile apps, right? You click off a
right.
button, you open the app, right? So see when you talk logically, we don't putting any transaction, but technically speaking, all this is all transaction. It calls it transaction in the backend.
Okay.
So even if you click here, click create sales order. See, when you go to manage sales order, I clicked on create sales order. It opens the screen for creating a sales order, right?
Correct.
But again, it calls a VA01 in the backend.
Yes.
It calls a VA01.
I meant to say that we don't have a space or field entering the transaction.
No. It is all, there's no space or field for. It's just click of a button because all the styles have been aligned to the particular user. For example, so I'll just explain this slide tile and I'll come back.
Okay.
So you have, see, for example, this is my sales overview. This gives 360-degree view of a customer. So it gives you in real time, click of a button, it gives you you can go and filter it based on the customer here. You can go and filter it based on a customer. It gives you what are the customer contacts, what are the open sales orders, what are the open sales quotations, what are the credit memo requests that have been blocked for a customer. So what are the active returns that are there, and it gives you what are the what is the sales order issues that are there. How many sales orders for the customer have been stuck up in an order level? How many sales order for the customer stuck up at the delivery level? And then you can drill it down here. So suppose I click on that, it takes me to the sales order fulfillment. It doesn't integrate into the sales order fulfillment, which I opened the screen previously, right? So it has an integration. So it gives you a list of what are the issues are there. So that is where it is all integrated now. Now you see everything is getting integrated into one particular setup here. So you can create a sales order here itself. Suppose you find there is some create memo request has to be created. You create some sales order. There's some create memo request. Immediately this has an option of creating. You can create a customer return order. So when you click on a customer return order, you could create a customer return. So customer return will always be created with reference to sales order or some billing from the invoice, right? With reference, create customer reference with reference to. So let it open. So you have multiple options like this. This is I'm just giving you a glimpse of how this SAP has transformed from just being a transaction mode of working to how you see that SAP as something where you have an UI component that has been integrated into the core of SAP S/4HANA. So people, when you start using it, you will find the ease in which it can be used. So imagine if this sort of reports are available for any business, right? So business will definitely be satisfied the way they can see the data gets translated in real time, right? That's what I said. In ECC, the processing was not that high, which is compared to SAP S/4HANA, right? When you say ECC, this sort of capabilities were not there. Again, we cannot blame it because it was designed for that particular era of computing, right? Now, when you go for this side, so when I go for here, so here I get what are the references documents here. So with regards to this particular thing, for this particular, I go and create a return order. Okay, there is no. Okay, 1 minute. Let me check where some order where something is existing. Some dummy orders have been created. There is nothing in that information. Let me see. So okay, now I create with reference to an invoice. There's an invoice that is created. I don't know why there is load on. So if you get this sort of issues, there could be some UI issue as well because the data is not getting populated. See, invoice is there. So invoice copies are there. Now you see. It gets loaded, it gets pulled out from the invoice. Okay, so for example, there is no returnable quantity, there's no order quantity, some issues are there with this invoice. So let me check some invoice, I'll check where I can immediately show you something. Okay, out of 100 quantity, so what happens is I'm going to return just 10 quantity out of it. Create. Okay, customer return is created successfully. The return orders that have been, this is how the return orders are getting created. In real time, click of a button, you can create it. Otherwise, you'll have to go to a VA01, create a customer return, right? You'll have to go to VA01, go and create a return document type you'll have to put, and then you'll have to create it. So now it's all create memos automatically got created. You see here, process flow, if I see. It is down. Process flow. And this could be some UI issue, but again, you can get all the information here. So what is the return reason? All these things you can make it and you can create it with reference to this. That's where it's a simple process in which the entire thing can be, because you see you have an existing thing, sales order, delivery, billing, then finally you have the return component as well there. So you have all these components, which is all which gives you a full-fledged information in front of you. That's when this becomes, that's what I said, user experience. User experience is increased. I said the main pain point which an IT was facing is basically how much ever good the product is. If the product is not appealing for the user, the functionality, how much ever the product is exhibiting, will not be a successful product. That's the reason now user experience has been given more importance, and they are trying to give more and more importance to the user. Okay, so that user gets satisfied and the business gets satisfied. Only if the business gets satisfied, my functionality or my product is going to be carried forward in the organization. Okay, and we'll be discussing on something called as material management and operations. So as I said, we are a logistics component. When you talk about logistics, it involves your procurement, sales, and your manufacturing. Because as I said yesterday, I don't know if someone is new. This is completely logistics where you have stakeholders. When I talk about individual stakeholders, you have your suppliers, you have your manufacturers, you have your distributors, you have your retailers, and you have your end customers. So you have your suppliers. When you talk about suppliers, suppliers are basically this basically constitutes your where they work on your inventory and procurement. Then you have your manufacturers. Then you have your distributor. Then you have your retailers. Then you have your customers. Basically, this is my SD. This is my PP part. So when you talk about the logistics component now, or a simple S4HANA logistics consultant will be focusing majorly on these four parameters, where they work on inventory management, your material valuations. When I talk about material valuations, so what is basically a material valuation? So how will my material valuate, whether it's a standard price or moving average price? And there is something called as a material ledger, where it used to work on something called as actual costing, parallel valuations, multi-currency. When all these things are there, so it gives a complete valuation, and this material ledger has been integrated to my universal journal ledger in your finance. So basically what happens is they want to track it in real time. What my costing is actually, what is my valuations, because there are a lot of, if you see in sales especially, when you see there are a lot of transfer pricings, right? If it moves from one region to other region, there will be internal profits that has to be shared, right? If the same product, if you're manufacturing a component, for example, a car is being manufactured and is being assembled in China. So the parts are not manufactured entirely in China. It is coming from various regions. One is from UK, some part is coming from Germany, some part is coming from some part of Europe, some component is coming from some part of Asia. So somewhere all these components comes in, and every component that comes in that moves from one direction to other, there will be some internal profit that has to be shared, right? When you have an internal profit that is shared, overall I assemble the car in China, and finally I draw the cost of the particular car. Imagine the cost would go high because there are a lot of internal profits get shared. So because of this material ledger, so what happens is that eliminates that concept of this internal profits or a profit margins across different regions, that gets eliminated as part of a material ledger. So material ledger was not something new, because you might ask me, some people who have worked on they'll say no, material ledger was existing in the ECC itself. So but the problem was material ledger, it was not a mandated concept there. So there was given an option. Some companies, wherever some projects went on, for example, if someone has worked on some Brazil projects, right, material ledger was mandated concept in Brazil project. So as per government regulations, it was a mandated concept. So that's when by default any Brazil based project will undergo a material ledger implementation, wherein material ledger implementation was not mandated in other projects. So that is when they said, now I'm giving you a material ledger which has become a mandatory without material ledger, because material ledger now is getting assigned to the valuation area level. So when I talk about a valuation area, either it could be a MRP level or it could be a plant level, right? So so that's when you talk about a material ledger now, it has become a mandatory, and without that GR, none of the GRs will happen without a material ledger assignment happening in the system. That's why material ledger is given more prominence. And in terms of the process and the sales or procurement and sales order management, a lot of procurement things have, some of the procurement teams, the way it is all being used in tiles has all changed. We'll see that in respective session. And sales orders also, a lot of things have become a tile based approach. We'll discuss all the styles as well when we discuss specifically about the sales order management concept. And you have something called as an MRP. Say MRP, basically it's about material requirements planning, right? How frequently in our past we were running your MRP? So MRP was not run on a very frequent basis, because it used to take a lot of time in processing an MRP, because it used to take all your demand, being it your independent demand, dependent demand, and whatever is the forecasting, everything has to be taken into consideration, based on which my MRP run used to get triggered, right? And based on which my planned orders used to get generated. Planned orders used to further get created, further used to create your purchase orders if the particular material is subjected to an in-house procurement. right? It's an external procurement. Then subsequently there will be a production order, right? Production order will be created. If at all that is an, so let me draw this. So normally an MRP setup is, it takes all the dependent demand which is coming from production requirements and your independent demand which is coming from sales orders, right? All these things will trigger your MRP. Even a forecasting, all these things will be taken into consideration when you have an MRP, historical data. So all these things will be taken. The historical data predominantly not, but forecasting, your demand and your all these things will be taken. Then your MRP will be triggered. MRP will give rise to a planned orders, right? Your planned orders will further create your purchase requisitions or your production orders. Okay. When you talk about a purchase requisition, suppose I have a production order. There is some finished goods that has been there in a production order, but there has a lot of raw material components. This raw material components is not, I'm not in a position, I'm not producing internally. These raw material components have to be procured. In that case, it has to take a PRPO route. PR will get converted to purchase requisition. When I take PR, purchase requisition, that gets converted to a PO. And after this, there will be a GR, right? After that, once this GR also for raw materials, that GR enters my warehouse. So what will happen is that GR, whatever is the raw material, that will get assigned to my production order. So then there will be a production execution that will be happening in the system. Then once my production execution happens in the system, then there will be having your production execution. Then if there is a technical completion, and finally again a GR will happen. You remember there are two GRs. One is basically, this is for the raw material, right? This is for a finished goods. I'm talking about a simple MTS scenario. Imagine the same thing gets carried forward for an MTO scenario. MTO scenario will have a reference of a sales order. So whatever raw GR that I'm doing, that gets assigned to my sales order, based on which my delivery will be created, and finally my billing will be created. This is how the entire process of MRP runs. So imagine so much of process has to be run. It takes a lot of time, and it has to have a much better throughput of the system in order to process so much of data. So what is happening is, now they come out with something called as an MRP live. When you talk about an MRP live, it takes in real time information and fast, and lot of processing capabilities in the backend have been enabled for it to process much faster. So your MRP concept has been enabled now to you can run MRP in a very quick successions, quick frequencies. You can run MRP. Okay, that is where your MRP. And you have your advance available to promise. When I talk about your advance available to promise, they have something called as AATP. It was a replacement of your GATP, global available to promise. So what was global available to promise? So you had your ATP in normal, any sales ATP check, you used to have your ATP, right? It used to do it at the plant level, right? Individual plant level it used to check. Imagine if it has to do at the multi-plant level. ATP had this limitation that it could not do a multi-plant level. That's the reason they come out with this GATP concept, global available to promise, where it goes and checks at the multi-plant level in the setup. Okay. So when you talk about this AATP and your GATP, now this GATP is completely replaced by AATP into SAP S/4HANA. AATP is called advanced available to promise. When I talk about advanced available to promise, let me show. So suppose there's something called as a product allocation, back order processing. So when you talk about a product allocation, suppose I have two customers, A and B. I have 100 quantity for one customer. I have 100 quantity for other customer. There's an order comes in for one customer 100. My stock is only left with 100 quantity. So as a customer gives me an order, as per ATP, whatever the stock existing, it will get assigned to the particular customer. So what will happen is, this A customer will enjoy that. He will, just because yes, he has given the order to be first. So he has the right to take over my delivery, and based on which I will be settling my invoices. That's all a part of their business. Now, when it comes to a B customer, so this customer is also equivalently important to me. Tomorrow, an A customer, not necessary that he might come and place an order to me immediate basis. This B customer will be a repeat customer for me. So in that cases, if I say no, I don't give a commitment of delivering the product right now to you, the B customer anytime can switch to a different competitor product, right? So in that cases, how will I keep all these customers intact? That is where your product allocation comes in. So when I talk about a product allocation, allocate the stock. So for example, I maintain week 1, week 2, week 3. maintain, I put 50, 50, 50 against each week for a customer A, and for customer B 50, 50, 50 for every customer. Okay. So when you talk about when my A order comes in, 100 quantity is getting created for one customer. So as it will go and check the allocations, and out of 100, 50 only will be allocated. So what will happen to other 50? Other 50 will be getting into your back order processing. Okay. Next, the customer B places an order. He'll be getting 50. He'll be getting on a 50 aside. Another 50 will get into your back order processing. Okay. Suppose then I have to balance it out, right? Basically, that's the purpose of sales, right? Sales has to ensure that all the customers are kept happy, and based on which they get repeat business from every customer, not losing any customer, right? So what happens is sales speaks to this customer. This customer says, no, boss, I need it at any cost. I need it very urgently. I need it at any cost. I've previously I've given you some leeway. Now I have very critical requirement. So it speaks to customer B. Customer B says, okay, fine. These guys will come somehow try to convince them, saying, sir, you just just this time. Next time I'll give you that quantity. Next week we are getting some requirement. Definitely we'll deliver it to you by next week. The customer B says, okay. That's when your back order processing works. When you do a back order processing, it will deconfirm from this customer and get assigned to this customer. So when assigned to this customer, the entire 100 quantity, it gets drawn from this customer. The entire 100 quantity will get confirmed for this customer. Once I have my confirmation for this quantity, then subsequently it will follow a delivery PGI. Then finally, then I'll have an invoice set up for the customer. This is where your back order processing actually works. Okay, so then they have something called as a release for delivery as part of this. I'm just giving you a thing, so we'll discuss all these things when it comes to the what goes behind, but the concept has to be clear as to what we are going to discuss. That's the reason I'm touching base on this concept. So when I talk about a release for delivery, what is my release for delivery? Suppose A customer, B customer, A customer has got 100 quantity, B customer as of now they don't have any confirmation. A customer now, before releasing a delivery, some very high priority order comes off, some C customer. That customer gives me a order for 100 quantity, and that 100 quantity he says, but somehow the sales team would have strived for this customer for a long time. Somehow they have picked the order. The customer would have given the order under condition that, boss, if you're delivering it to me right now, only then they pick up this order. And he might be a future prospective customer. So in that case, what will happen is, again, who will be prioritized here? Again, before getting released for delivery, again, there has to be a list of negotiations that will happen with this customer. Some order will be coming, some vendors will be pushed further, or some production lines will be strengthened, so that this particular A customer will be delivered this week. But as of now, the order will get confirmed for the C customer, and this entire 100 quantity gets confirmed for a C customer, so he gets a delivery, so business is happy. So based on which A customer is also kept happy, because this week itself they'll try to manage some stock for this A customer, and based on which the entire ecosystem is going in a smooth way. This is how your entire concept of your available to promise. That's a very critical concept when it comes to sales, right? Everyone knows, because available to promise is something where your entire sales is reliable upon, wherever there is a shipping involved, right? Because if it's a service order, then there's no, because it's an order related billing, you create an order based on a billing. When it comes to shipments, when you have the existing stock, how do you balance out the stock? How? Because you cannot be having so much of stock into my warehouse, because again it will add up to my inventory costs. How do I optimize the stock, right? All these things are part of your advance available to promise. Okay, so then you have your advance available promise. That is very critical concept as part of this sales process. Then your master data maintenance. What is my master data maintenance? Basically, you had your business partner as a concept, right? Many people you would have worked on your ECC, something called as customer master, vendor master. Now we have something called as a business partner, which is coming as part of this SAP S4HANA. What is the need for SAP to bring in this business partner into SAP S4HANA? Because business partner is something that is not new to SAP. SAP was having business partner. If someone has worked on CRM, SRM, and your EWM system, the business partner concept was there. Business partner concept was there in the system. So now they're trying to integrate everything into one single system, as I said, right? In future, they're trying to integrate everything into one single system. When they want to put everything into one single system, I cannot be having business partner in the same system. I cannot be having customer master, vendor master in the same system. Again, that will be a lot of inconsistencies when it comes to the transaction based setup. Till this days, ECC was separate and it was interacting with other systems through your QRFCs. That's where there are SIFs and SIF master data was getting transmitted from existing ECC system to SAP S4HANA system. Sorry, ECC system to the respective system. So that's where there is no confusion. Now, if everything is coming onto one single box going forward, right? So basically, if I want to show here, I wanted to show this as well. To open the system here. So people, how many people would have worked on EWM, right? Would have worked on a different box in EWM. So I'll talk about a different box in EWM. It will all be one single box, right? So now you see EWM is again integrated into the same box. All this EWM, and you don't have any more WM in the system. WM is completely eliminated. The component of WM has been completely eliminated from the system. It's only your EWM, extended warehouse management. So beyond the storage location, if you want to look out, it's a warehouse number. That warehouse number belongs to your EWM. You don't have, again, beyond the warehouse number, then you have your storage sections, then you have your picking areas, then you have a quant and bin level. Yes, the structure of your EWM carries forward, but when it comes to your EWM, all this integrated EWM is integrated in one single box. You have your sales, procurement, logistics, general, everything integrated into your. You go and check your ECC system, you will not have this EWM component, and you have your transportation component, transportation management. TM is also getting integrated. So you have a lot of system like your portfolio project management, right? You have your portfolio and project systems you see here. All the PS systems, plus you have your portfolio and project management also getting integrated into one single system. So when you have so many things getting integrated into one single system, it makes everyone's life easier. Yes, when everyone's life has to be made easier by putting everything into one system, the performance of the system needs to be in such a way that they don't compromise on the performance. On top of it, I need to have enough space to put all these things so that it has an optimal performance in the system. That is when they have made all this database simple. Okay, so that's where you have your master data maintenance, and there is something called as capacity planning. So what is my capacity planning? So previously, if you have heard of something called as production planning detailed scheduling in your APO system. So basically, because my entire production setup is based on the work center level, right? So each work center will have its own load and capacity on which it is planned and based on which execution happens. Imagine once one work center is trained enough, just because there's no proper planning and so much of load comes on the work centers, and there's not enough load balancing happening on respective other work centers, right? So what would happen is, so based on which the entire planned, because you have a planned orders that are getting created in the system, and based on which they have something called as heuristics. Heuristics is basically all this complex calculation that works on in ensuring that you can plan properly for your capacity of the system. So heuristics is planned. They have something called as detailed scheduling boards, based on which they take the data from your heuristics, and based on which they plan it detailed in the system, based on which your planned orders are created. Your planned orders gets converted to your production orders, right? Production orders will decide as to what is the work center assignment, what is the routing assignment. When you talk about routing, that is again a part of your, that is aligned to a work center. The sequence of activities that has to be taken, that's all how it is all aligned as routing. Then routing gets aligned to my operations. Operations is one process to other process, how the entire work centers have been aligned, how the routings have been aligned. That's where, because everything gets triggered from your planned order level. So that is the reason they do a proper planning at the planned order level, so that it gets all these things are getting bifurcated further. So it helps in proper planning at the capacity planning level. Okay, coming to the course requirements, as I said, we basically touch base on two parts. We'll be discussing. So I've given a glimpse of before we get into some simplification concept. You have a brief overview of whatever thing we'll be discussing. Maybe one or two more sessions we'll discuss on all these things. Then we get into individual wise discussions. Okay, so basically we'll be discussing on your introduction, which we are currently doing. We're still in the introduction phase. Then we're discussing on ECC. In the introduction itself, we'll be trying to cover what are the differences that come from ECC versus S4HANA. That's the reason it normally takes around 4 hours for me. Normally takes around 4 hours for me to complete this particular setup. So then we have an implementation scenarios. And here basically it takes one hour each. And this HANA Cloud, basically I take 1 hour in. Then this three, basically I take 2 hours, and this will be in 1 hour. So I talk about 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 hours would be over here. 9 to 10 hours would be as part of your functional. This will be having some functional as well, where we discuss all these things. So I normally take 8 to 9 hours predominantly for your technology base. This is all technology based discussion, where this part would be a functional thing, which I'm touching base as it comes as part of your introduction. Then coming to your functional aspects, we discuss on all the simplifications in procurement, production, procurement, and your sales. Okay, so this basically, when you talk about these things, we'll be discussing on one is simplifications, plus we'll be discussing on the existing configurations from which has come from your ECC. When I talk about existing configuration, this will be critical configuration which a logistics consultant need to know, right? Because it just discuss the simplification doesn't make sense, because some people are from some people are from production, they're from different backgrounds, right? So that's the reason we will have to get them onto one common page by trying to explain what are the existing configurations, critical configurations when I mean, plus my existing simplification that has happened in 1709 system. We're trying for 1809. Once we get 1809, we are Suresh is trying to feasible to get an 1809. We'll do that. We'll be doing 1709, 1809 parallelly. Okay. Plus, you have all the business process that is there in sales, procurement, manufacturing. We'll be discussing what business process were existing to what business process has changed. They'll be discussing on all the latest apps with regards to your sales and procurement. Then we'll be discussing. So normally I take around 20 to 22 hours. That's what I said. So totally the 30-hour session, of which 8 to 9 hours will be on technology based discussion, and rest 20 to 22 hours. Basically, I distribute this 30 hours accordingly. So this is how the entire thing will be there. In the next session today, I'm just closing. We have discussed some part of it. Simplification, we have done some overlap part of it. So in detail of simplifications, I'll be taking up a next session. So probably it'll take another 2 hours for me to complete that simplification component, so that next we go to the subsequent sessions of discussions. Yeah. So any clarifications from anyone?
Yeah, just I want to know the difference between on-premises and cloud.
Okay, so when I talk about an on-premises to the cloud, see, on-premise is something. This is an on-premise system. What we are seeing here is an on-premise system, right? The cloud will have you will have a cloud system, but the problem is in cloud you will not have this backend access majority, because the backend access is completely controlled by SAP.
Okay.
So predominantly it will be a more of standard fit to use product. Even if you want to do any changes to the existing cloud system, you will have minimum changes. That some tiles are there where they give you some minimum changes to be done, beyond which it has to, we'll have to write to SAP like how you write an FS, right, to a technical team. We'll have to write an FS to the SAP. SAP will decide at their discretionary whether that change could be allowed in their system or not.
If they will allow, then only we can make the changes. Otherwise,
Then you will not make it. Even if they allow, they only can make it.
Achha,
Because the backend access, because you are not, it is not there in your premises, right? It is there in SAP's premises, where SAP, a lot of customers are or on a shared environment, or they are taken up a private cloud. But still, there will be a lot of projects running in. Suppose you request the change and they implement the change, and if it affects other customers, right?
yes.
So that is the reason, because it's an on-premise, you have the flexibility because everything is put on your environment. So you are whole and sole responsible for any changes that happen. Wherein the onus of responsibility comes on SAP if they do any changes there and it affects other customers, right? Because they are under stitched there, because cloud services are under stitched stringent SLAs there, even for SAP.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how.
I have a small doubt.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, right now I'm working with SAP SD consultant as a. Okay, henceforth in S/4HANA, we will handle MM related tickets also. I mean tickets means MM related
Implementations, configurations also. Yeah.
Yes.
Because it depends on projects. Because some projects are specifically asking sales S/4HANA. You would have seen some requirement coming for MM S/4HANA, but some requirements asking for logistics S/4HANA. So if you're prepared for logistics S/4HANA, you can handle sales or MM or procurement.
Okay. But as of date, I know very well in SD related transactions and everything. But in MM also very big module. How can I understand what are the changes are required?
Because what is happening is MM, I'll touch base most of that changes, but plus I'll share some documents for you to there'll be some sort of self-learning also is required, right? Because we cannot discuss everything, because each one is a version, each module is a version, right?
Yes.
This is the right time where we step in and we put in some effort to learn more. Okay. Along with whatever we teach, you can also a lot of, because if you see 70% of the configuration has been carried forward from ECC.
Okay. And one more thing, integration part, FI and MM and SD. Okay,
Yeah.
this integration is very big. In henceforth S4 HANA also we have worked with FI, MM and SD. It is a more compared to ECC or same level
No, it is the
like
same level. See, ultimately what happens in the sales level, when you create a sales order, it gets accounted as an account receivables, right, in finance, right?
exactly.
Basically, when you talk about a procurement, it gets accounted as an account payables,
Okay.
right?
We
And
are
you have
using
your account,
MC.
because you have your account determination for sales. Similarly, you have an account determination for procurement,
Okay.
right? For material level. Then you have something called as in the production side where this integration to FI happens is predominantly in the costing side,
Okay.
right? So that's where the integrations are the same. So there have been changes in the finance side. So where they have made the finance simpler, but from a logistics perspective, when you talk about integrations, it's one and the same.
Okay. Okay.
So finance wise, it makes simpler because finance was complex in an easy setup. Now they've simplified the way finance was being used now in the system.
I think you shown Fiori apps, but every company are using that Fiori apps and Fiori tiles.
Because
Is it a
S4HANA has become
mandatory?
S4HANA has become a completely Fiori setup there.
Uh,
So
mean
see, it comes as a license. It comes as a license. Along with the license, it does not charge anything extra. So when a
okay.
customer, because every customer, if it is at the business level, they will definitely ask for Fiori. How many customers at the business level say no? I'll still go for the transaction mode of working. In
Okay,
spite of
understood.
them, paying for Fiori, paid already for Fiori, definitely they will ask them to implement Fiori.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
actually, recently my one of company has implemented S/4HANA, but they are not using any S/4 Fiori apps as of date.
No.
So
Maybe what has happened is, yeah. So because you see, they are doing S4 HANA, they have done for HANA migration. Just that's what I wanted to know. Have
S/4HANA,
they come to
S/4HANA,
S4 HANA? But
S/4HANA only.
predominantly any business would like to have this sort of Fiori tiles. Maybe we do not know what is the reason why they have not implemented, but any company, they would already paid for the Fiori. If they already paid for the Fiori, if they're not implemented, then we do not know what the reason. But predominantly all companies, because S4 HANA is positioned as a Fiori based product, right?
Yes,
S4
exactly.
HANA is positioned as a Fiori based project. So if you are taking a backend as well, you can use an easy system as well, right?
Hmm.
Right? You can as
Right.
well use an easy system. Why this Fiori is being used is because a lot of reports, real-time reports are getting generated. When the business can see the reports and they can take a real-time decision, that eventually helps the business. Maybe not now, but future definitely they can ask the service provider or whoever there to implement the Fiori concept.
Okay.
As of now, they are not done because there's some issues would have come up. So they are trying to fix those issues, and later they could go for a Fiori implementation.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay. So if there are no queries, then we'll close this for today. We'll meet in the subsequent. Suresh will send you the details with regards to the links. So we'll meet from a subsequent week from the next sessions whenever we take it up. It will be quietly a longer sessions. We are done for one and a half hours at least bare minimum. It will be. That's what I'm just saying. Because being a Saturday and Sunday, it will be productive if it